action. Yeah, and the reason why I had to do it like that was because if I did it out here, then you get
It's
you get it.
invisible.
I'm holding nothing at the moment.
I'm holding nothing at the moment too.
So, hello guys, welcome back to another episode of In Conversation with ATF. I'm the Fangirl. Today I'm on Cybertron. My guest is in space. Virtual backgrounds are quite fun because I've used them in meetings like all the time. But anyways, my guest today is a voice actor who has lots of notable credits, including X-Brawn in Transformers: Robots in Disguise, the 2001 series, not the 2015 one. Man Ray in Spongebob, taken over from John Rhys Davis. I think he only did it for one episode. Yeah, I think.
He did a handful of episodes and was never available when they needed him to come in and record, and he would have to record later. And the producers wanted somebody that was there to do it, so they didn't have to, use an actor to do placeholding of his lines. So they put out a call, and I've voice matched John for a number of years now.
Oh, really?
Yes, on the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland. There's a safety spiel, and you have John dressed up as Sala running around, and it was his voice initially that was on the video. And in 2004, when he was working on Lord of the Rings, they needed to update it, and he really wasn't available to go into a studio to record it. So they put out a call for it from Walt Disney Imagineering, and I got that job. So when you go on the ride, you hear me saying, "Welcome, my friends, to the Indiana Jones adventure. Please keep your hands, legs, feet, and arms inside the transport. Okie dokie?"
I need to get to Disneyland. I have never been abroad before, ever.
Well, you need to do that someday.
I hope so. Also, my guest credits include Jack from Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, the owner of that diner that Scooby and Shaggy eat a ton of stuff at, right? Yeah?
Jack, the avuncular restaurant owner.
That's him. That's him. That's the guy. Bagheera in multiple Jungle Book media, like Jungle Book 2, and a few episodes of Jungle Cubs, I believe. Is that correct?
Only did a video game called Rhythm and Groove.
Video game. That's what I'm getting confused with. Sorry.
And I did Jungle Cubs were different people because everybody was younger.
I see.
Much like 7D. I do the voice of Sneezy, but on 7D, Scotty Menville was the voice of Sneezy because all the dwarves were younger.
Oh wow! I've actually I actually got through to Scott because I emailed Sam obviously regarding like a different project, and yeah, that was quite fun. And also,
he's a great guy.
He is lovely. I've seen some of his work, and the final role, well, not the final role that well, to be fair, this is recent. Bill Green in Big City Greens.
I am the dad. Yes.
You're the daddy.
It's one of the best jobs I've ever had. Season 1 premiered last Friday was the 3-year anniversary of season 1 premiering.
Oh, wow.
Premiered on June 18th of 2018.
Wow.
And we're in the middle of recording season 3 right now.
Oh, wow. I hope that goes well.
Season 2 has premiered all of its episodes. And we have an unusual season where most of the shows that Disney does are anywhere from 20 to 24 episodes. So you have 2 11-minute segments per episode. We were given a 20-episode first season, and before it even premiered, they tagged on another 10. Wow. So we do 60 11-minute segments per season.
Wow. You guys are quite special then, my guess.
We are, and we're hoping that before the month is over with, the executives at Disney Animation are going to give us a season 4. But we don't know yet.
Oh, my guest is Bob Joles. Welcome.
I'm hoping.
That's how big his career is, because like I don't take that long to introduce people, but when they've got a lot of roles I like to talk about, man, it can just you just go off topic, and it is quite fun. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Amber. It's nice to be here.
It's lovely for you to be here. I've wanted to interview you now for a while because I love some of your roles, and also another main reason was because I was inspired by a video that Abby Cluster put on Facebook. For those of you who don't know, Abby Cluster is the daughter of Chris Latta, who was the original voice of Starscream, Cobra Commander. Abby put a video on her Facebook, and it was of a birthday message that her son received from who voices Cricket in Big City Greens again?
Chris Houghton,
Chris
he
Houghton.
and his brother Shane created the show. Chris voices Cricket, my 10-year-old son, on the show.
And
I asked Cricket if he would, or asked Chris if he would do some Cricket stuff. So we kind of came up with a little thing, and he said his bits, and then it was sort of an interaction between the two of us. It was very fun.
And I loved it. I just love watching that video. Yeah, but Abby's son Liam. So yeah, Chris and Bob did a video, like a little video message, and man, made my heart well up with so much. It just felt so great. Like, to think that you did it for everyone calls Abby's son like Starscream's grandson, because essentially Chris Latta is his granddad, and I think it's just so sweet. Honestly, that is so kind, so wholesome, and that's why we all love you, Bob.
It's a great thing to do, and I've done it many times before. A family friend of ours is a school teacher, and one of her students was a big fan of the show, and I sent a video, or not a video, but an audio message to her through her teacher, and the mother was just absolutely thrilled to death, and so was the daughter. I did it for a friend of Scotty Menville's, who lives in Texas now. He has two sons, and they both love Big City Greens, and I sent a Bill Green message to them, and the mom filmed it on her iPhone while Dad was playing the audio message on his, and to watch the two boys just go crazy was so cool.
You'll have to send me that video. Just anything like that just brightens up my day. Just like, I mean, obviously it's never happened to me because obviously, well, I obviously run a YouTube channel. I haven't had anyone say, actually, no, yes, I have. I had this one mum who I'm very close friends with asking if I could do a little video message for her son's birthday, and I did, and he was just so happy, and
it's a wonderful feeling. It really
makes your heart throb, honestly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Right, so we talk.
Let's dig in.
Yeah, let's dig in. Right. So tell me, first of all, a bit about your time on Big City Greens. Tell us about the show. What's it like? When did it start, actually? I can't remember.
Well, the first audition for the main characters was in 2015.
Oh, wow.
So we did that, and then that was in the late fall of 2015, if I remember correctly. And then we recorded the pilot in early 2016, and once everything kind of gelled and we got everything going, we started recording practically every week.
Wow.
And so we got the first, and the writers were incredible. They were discovering what each of our characters were about as everything progressed, and there were certain things that Tilly, who's voiced by Mary of Harrington, my daughter on the show, they would write things like where Tilly would say dad or daddy or father, and they had started off by having her call Bill Papa. Aww. And it's always Papa. So she would make those corrections, and the writers finally figured out, okay, we don't put in dad or father, it's always Papa. But it's, and the other sad thing, not the other sad thing, the sad thing about the way Disney records, but it's because of the type of people they use. They do use a lot of celebrities. We can't always have the cast together to do the show record at the same time. So they record everybody individually.
Yeah, it's like that with a lot of shows. I mean, even with older shows, like, mainly to do with anime, because it's obviously in the 80s, like, you've recorded with a group, an ensemble cast with an animation, but with an anime, you're just in your own in a booth, and that's
right. You're dubbing the lines that need to be put in.
Yeah.
But when I did Planet Sheen on Nickelodeon, we always did a group record, and that was Jeff Garcia as Sheen, Rob Paulson as Dobby. I don't remember his name. Anyway, basically it was Carl Weezer as an alien
I
from the
see.
old Jimmy Neutron show. And then we had Jeff Glenn Bennett as Dorcas, who was the evil guy that was always trying to get the Emperor to get rid of Sheen. And Mr. Nesmith, my character, the talking monkey, came from Earth in a rocket and crash landed on Xenu, the planet. And by crash landing there, going through the atmosphere, I gained the power of speech and super intelligence.
Ah.
And the Emperor was voiced by Fred Tatasciore. And his daughter Umlaut, who had one head but two faces, one on the front and one on the back.
Yeah.
One was, somewhat smart and sweet, and the other side was really dorky and obnoxious. That was voiced by Candy Milo.
I love Candy Milo. I've interviewed her before. She was lovely.
She's a doll. So talented.
Like, it was last November. I remember, like, she said to me, she went out to vote, and then she completely forgot she was interviewing me like 5-10 minutes. So she said she sprinted back home just to get back onto Zoom with me. I was like, ah. Felt so good.
She's a good person.
She's a good person. Yeah, I'm proud of her.
But we always did a group record with that, and Spongebob is always a group record. Except, of course, during the pandemic, everybody's been recording from home, and we do it. We've done it individually. I just did some Man Ray for the new Patrick Star show.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yes, Man Ray shows up on Patrick Star.
Oh, interesting. I don't know when it's going to come out in the
UK. A couple of episodes for the first season, and Tom Kinney is the voice director now.
Is he?
He was voice directing the last couple of years on SpongeBob.
Oh,
and
wow.
He's the voice director for the Patrick Star show.
That's so cool. I mean, it's cool how some people go from being voice actors to voice directors. I mean, if you take Charlie Adler, Susan Blue, for example. So yeah, it is cool how they go from being taught to the one doing the teaching themselves.
Yeah, it's an interesting process. We had Chris and Shane did almost all the voice directing during the first season of Planet Sheen, and then they became so busy with their showrunner positions on, and executive, being executives and overseeing everything, that they couldn't do the voice directing for Big City Greens for season 2. So they took Monica Ray, who was one of our directors, and Monica became our voice director during season 2, and we had just started doing season 3, and Monica is now working on developing a show that she pitched to Disney, and they really liked it. So she is stepping back from her duties at Big City Greens and her voice directing, and now Mary of Harrington is our voice director. While they search for someone, they want to find somebody on staff, one of the directors or writers, to be the voice director. But Miriam's doing a great job right now.
Wow. What's this new show that you said's been pitched to Disney? Sorry, who was the voice
actor? I have no idea. Monica. It's still in development. I don't think it even has a title yet.
I was going to say, no, so you couldn't say because of NDAs or anything like that. But...
Well, just Monica not saying anything was the NDA.
Oh, sorry, I thought my arm went then. I need to use these more often. All right, people who are still watching, let me know if you want me to use these backgrounds more often, because I'm more than happy to. They just have the weirdest effect on me ever. They're just so funny, and they're just...
Look, my hand goes away.
I just want to do that on a call and just say, and they're like, hold on, I'm trying to... Like, I'm going to spend like 5 minutes just messing around with it. Hold on, wait. I nearly got it. Come on. I should be talking to you, not messing around with interviewing.
Green screen, we love you.
I had a green screen down there, but it's so cheap and tacky. Like, I need to get a new one. Well, I've got a really skinny hand. And my other one's missing for some reason.
Well, I have these giant baseball mitts.
Oh, my hand's disappeared.
Well, that's because I put them down.
Yeah, but when I raise my hands up, oh, that's clever. Oh man, I'm having too much fun with this. There just needs to be a separate video. I need to release all these little mini clips just in one video, saying "mess around during interviews, part 1, part 2." You know, you get the idea. What else is on my list? I was going to mention Man Ray and SpongeBob. What was that like?
Man Ray came about in 2007 when Paul Tibbett, who was the executive producer at the time of the show, wanted to be able to have Man Ray actually in the recording booth when everybody was working and recording the show. And
Mom's gone again.
They just, John is such a busy actor, and he's always somewhere in the world filming something, and it was just too tight for them, and they wanted to have an actor doing it, so they put out a call, like they often do, for somebody who could voice match him. And I've been doing a lot of voice matching of John at that point. Actually, at that point, I had just started doing some of the video games for Lord of the Rings.
Oh, really?
As Gimli and Treebeard.
That's so cool.
So there's several video games out there that I'm on. In fact, just as a brief aside, there was one day that I got a call the day before the session was to be. Usually you have a week or so, sometimes even more than that, to know when you're going to do a video game. And I went in the next day because I was free. I had nothing on my schedule. And the director was there, and he said, "Oh, Bob, we're so glad you could be here. John was here yesterday, and we didn't get to this stuff." So, what do you mean you didn't get to this stuff? Why isn't he here now? Well, he had to fly off. He's over, wherever on the other side of the world filming, today. But he said before he left, "Why don't you get that guy who does me?"
Oh, wow. So you got his approval then, essentially.
Apparently he knows I exist. I've never met the man. I would love to someday. But apparently he knows that I'm out there.
Yeah, you're like, he knows my name!
No, he didn't say my name. He just said that guy who does me.
Ooh, interesting. I wonder if we could just get you two just to like get a Man Boy off someday or something like that. I would pay money to
He'll
see
do
that.
It better because he was the original, hands down. But I got the gig, and I went in, and it was my second time working with Clancy Brown. I had worked with him many years before that on a series, Jackie Chan Adventures. And he played the police commissioner or the chief detective or something like that. But anyway, and the day that I met him, we were at Salami Studios, and I walked over and introduced myself to him, and we got along great. And there was a little incident that happened during the record, and one of the actors on the show, one of the stars, just had a few lines and did their thing and then left. But before, he left, they wanted to make sure that, they had everything. And as he left, the executive producer, forget his name, but it'll come to me in a second. But Sue Blue, and he turned to me after he had cleared, the control room, and said, "Bob, we need you to redo the voice of the museum curator at the top, because when they had given it to this actor as a second voice, and he sounded exactly like his villain character, and they couldn't have that." So they just said, "Bob, do this." So then, we did that at the end of the record. But before, when we finished with Act 3, Clancy had a couple of lines at the end of the act, and he was done. So they wanted to get Clancy out of there. And they said, "Hold on a second. We're going to check to make sure we got everything." And he said, "Why bother? Why don't you just have Bob do it when I leave?" And I turned because I was absolutely petrified that he thought, "Oh my God, this guy's going to take my job from me." And I just turned and looked at him, and he gave me the biggest wink with his eye, smile. We have been wonderful friends ever since then. And it's always nice to go in and do a Man Ray on SpongeBob and have Clancy there as Mr. Krabs. In fact, I've even done Mr. Krabs on a couple of video games.
Oh, really?
Clancy wasn't available, yeah.
Wow.
And I told him I was doing it, and he said, "Well, good. At least it's somebody I like."
Can I hear Mr. Krabs' impression?
"It all started with a Krabby Patty with cheese."
That sounds actually accurate. Oh, wow. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
It's hard to impress me. Okay, I lied. It's very easy to impress me if you're a voice actor.
It's easy to impress me too, so.
Oh, I'm trying to look at my list. My phone keeps locking, so I need to, go in, look at it, come back, talk, go in.
Of course.
Excuse me, I just lost my words. Sometimes I could just sit there in silence and I just look at something and just like my brain's like a beep 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 fax machine just starts like, what do I say? What do I say?
It's all right. Just reboot.
Okay, breathe.
Deep breath.
Okay. Let's talk about Transformers: Robots in Disguise, the anime.
It was a very long time ago.
2001, actually, I think it was. Yeah, 20 years ago. Oh my gosh.
That's a long time in the voiceover career. It was the summer of the commercials strike here in Los Angeles.
Uh-huh.
And when I wasn't working on the show, I would be out on a picket line, protesting and demanding more money from the overlords that weren't paying us proper wage and whatnot. It wasn't quite that bad, but there were certain things that we wanted, and we eventually got. But anyway, I had voiceover work in animation that I could fall back on, and that I had that show at that time, and it was a lot of fun to work on. Again, we didn't record together. Everybody was.
I lost both my arms finally.
My fingers are going. Everybody recorded separately, but I had, as I was telling you just before you pushed record,
yeah,
I had the shortest record sessions because the character I did, X-Brawn, had a piece in front of where his mouth would be, so you never saw his lips move. You only heard his voice. So I didn't have to match the mouth movements, from the original Japanese recording. I just had to fit what I had to say within the time frame that they had allowed. So I would do my dialogue, and I would usually be out of the recording booth in about 20 minutes. And everybody else, my friend Bob Pappenbrook would go in there, and he'd have to go in and sweat for an hour and a half, 2 hours to match all the lip flaps.
I'm looking at a photo. Yeah, he does. He has a sort of. Oh, you can't even see because of my There we go.
Yep, that's him.
Wow. And I think Michael McConney was the voice director. Forgive me if I didn't pronounce his name properly.
He did some of the voice directing. Steve Kramer did a lot of the voice directing.
And Michael actually worked on the original G1 Transformers. I think he was a few Autobots. I think he might have been Trax. I could be wrong. Unless I just quickly look at my phone.
No. Let's go with what you think.
Am I right? I was right. Your voice is Trax.
Good girl.
I know my Transformers stuff. I've been a fan of it since the pandemic hit, and since obviously I met Frank Welker and Peter Cullen actually before the pandemic. They came over like just before it hit. They did the first like UK appearance, and then I went to see them. It was so nice. And then I met them again virtually just this April gone, and they were just so nice.
They're wonderful guys and have amazing careers.
Yeah.
And the stories the two of them have, you could just sit for a couple of hours and they'd barely scratch the surface of all the stories.
Yeah. Have you ever met them before?
Oh, good heavens!
Well,
yes,
of course,
I worked with Frank on Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost.
Oh, of course! Oh, sorry.
Yes, there was a very famous incident that happened on that record,
Really?
and I don't want to talk about it for fear of embarrassing the person that pulled the boner, but it was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever been involved with in a recording. And everybody, when the person who said it said the words, everybody stopped and looked at him, and he just thought he was being, very cool and with what he had said, and everybody was just aghast.
Oh. To find out who it is, please subscribe to the Amber the Fangirl YouTube channel for only $10.99 a month. This is the premium content.
One day I'll do my autobiography and I'll spill all the beans.
Oh yeah. So you were all together then, every single.
We were all together. I was sitting next to B.J. Ward and Tress McNeil on my right, and on my left was Frank Welker.
Did you see Mary Kay Bergman?
Oh, Mary Kay was a very dear friend of mine because I also do the voice of Sneezy of the Seven Dwarves, and she was our Snow White for many, many years until her passing.
Oh, bless.
But she was in the room. and Neil Ross was in there, and
He
so
was the first person I spoke to for my series, actually.
Neil is a wonderful man. He has a wonderful book,
Yeah.
Vocal Recall,
Hmm.
all about his adventures in voiceover.
So good.
Peter Rennaday was
Oh, Peter, of
in the room.
course.
Peter's a wonderful friend. I see him frequently. He just turned, I believe, 87.
Oh, wow.
And he
That's
is the voice
remarkable.
of Henry of the Country Bear Jamboree, the guy who hosts the show.
Wow.
So
I
he's
think
been doing, and he was the voice of Captain Nemo in the submarine ride when it before it became Finding Dory, uh, and they went a different way with it. But when it was the submarine ride of the Nautilus, he was the voice of Captain Nemo.
wow, that's so
Yeah,
cool.
he's done lots of voices at Disneyland.
And he was also Grapple and Lord Chumley in Transformers as well, the G1
Yeah.
cartoon.
And
Everything links to
and
Transformers.
and he was the original Splinter.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
the original Splinter.
That's so cool.
Oh, he's such a nice man.
I think I have his email somewhere. I need to try and get him on this show. It'd be lovely to speak to him.
He's a
Bless.
wonderful person.
Fingers crossed. Who else was on the film? Tim Curry. Was Tim Curry there?
Tim Curry recorded his lines the day before because he had to go film something. I think he had to go back to England for something.
Oh.
So they recorded all of his lines the day before, and then the next 2 days we had the full cast.
Oh, so of course. The celebrities will usually record with the voice actors. I don't believe.
There's a lot of times that they will. Tim usually likes to record with a group, but he just had a prior commitment that he couldn't take the 2 days that we needed for the record with everybody there. But it was really fun. Chris Zimmerman and Colette Sunderman were the voice directors, and we had a great time. It was a wonderful 2 days at Salami Studios with that.
They always do the Scooby-Doo stuff at Salami Studios. I think they recorded the new series and the recent specials at Salami Studios.
Yeah, I did Be Cool, an episode of Be Cool Scooby-Doo.
Oh.
I played the owner of a movie studio that was being haunted.
Ooh. And it's just so great. And as I have to say, obviously Frank's been voicing Fred since the franchise literally began.
Oh yeah, and that was 1969, I believe.
About 52 years. That's amazing.
It's amazing, and every once in a while, when we were doing a Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, Chris Zimmerman would say, "Frank, Freddie's starting to sound a little more like he's in his late 30s. We need to have you young him down again." And he'd just make a little adjustment, and there it was. He's a master of the craft. I mean, and he's one of my idols. He's one of the reasons I wanted to get into voice acting. He was one of the reasons I got into voice acting to begin with. He and my first hero of voice acting was Paul Frees.
I love Paul Frees as well. My favorite role of his is Boris Badenov in Rocky and
Boris Badenov, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he was the original Pillsbury Doughboy for. He was Poppin' Fresh, and they created that. I think it was 1965, and he did it for 20 years until his passing in 1985. He was
Ludwig von Drake as well. Yeah.
And countless other characters.
Tons of Rankin Bass films he was in.
Oh, please.
He was like mainstay.
Burgermeister Meisterburger.
Mm-hmm. Sadly, none of them, no Rankin Bass holiday stuff is aired in the UK. We don't get Rudolph at Christmas. We don't get Peter Cottontail at Easter. So we're essentially just missing out. Well, there's YouTube. Someone uploads Rudolph to YouTube every year, and I have to quickly watch before it gets blocked. So that's like a Christmas tradition for me.
Darn you, Sky TV and BBC.
And ITV and Channel 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Have you been to the UK before?
Yes, I have.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You were at. We did that before we started. So no, my first time was when I was in high school. My high school band did a tour of England and Scotland. We landed in London and went up to Kent, and then went up one coast and back down the other. We went up to Edinburgh and came down the other side of the country. And my mother at that time thought we may not get a chance to, she may not get a chance to come back to Europe. So with the tour company that did the tour, she extended our tour. We started 4 days in front of the band and went to Paris and Brussels and Luxembourg, and then met the band, and then did the tour. And then the night before they left, we had a farewell dinner, and we and several other people got on a night ferry and woke up the next morning in Amsterdam.
Wow.
And stayed there for a couple of days. And then those people, there were a bunch of people from the band that went back home. My mother and I continued on with four other people that we were with, and went to, woke up the next day in Copenhagen and spent the day there, seeing the Tivoli Gardens, and toured the Carlsberg Brewery, and then went on a night train and woke up in Koblenz at the bottom of the Rhine River, and took the ferry up the river to Mainz and spent the night in Mainz. And then we went the next day to Rothenburg unter Tauber.
Wow, that sounds so
And
cool.
we actually stayed at a little place outside of there, and walked the kilometer into the city each day to look around. It was absolutely beautiful. And then spent a couple of days in Munich, and then took the Orient Express to Paris on a night train visit, and then waited around for our plane flight home to LA. And I got back home the day that I started my senior year of high school, and had marching band practice that afternoon.
Oh wow! Sounds
I
like
was
you had a really
very
good
tired.
time. Sounds like you had a really good time though. I hardly
It
leave the
was
house.
fabulous. It was fabulous. And then my next trip was in college. I went to Cal State Long Beach, and the marching band was invited in to perform in the summer of 1980 at the Edinburgh Tattoo.
Oh.
And so we spent 6 weeks, 5 weeks performing, but 6 weeks total in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next time after that was 2002. 2002? No, 2000 or 2002. I don't remember. Anyway, somewhere along in there, I went back with a community band that I played with here in the U.S., here locally in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And we took a tour of England and Scotland, and that was quite a few years in between. But then the next trip that I had to the UK was with my wife, Pat, in, must have been about 7, 8 years ago. I can't remember exactly. But we were on a repositioning cruise that left out of Fort Lauderdale, went across the Atlantic, and it did Ireland, Scotland, and England. And the boat docked in Glasgow, and we took buses over to Edinburgh. She wanted to see the Elephant Cafe and the Balmoral Hotel, where J.K. Rowling had done her Harry Potter writings.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is a huge Harry Potter fan.
Is she? Wow.
Yes.
That's so cool.
So that was my last trip to the UK. But I hope the last one I've had so far. I hope it's not my very last trip.
Yeah, I hope so too. You come to a convention, I could come and see you, because we don't get a lot of voice actors over here. Well, we do, but to be fair, MCM, which is like a London convention, we had some good voice actors one year. I think we had Jess Harnell, James Arnold Taylor, Jim Cummings at the same event. We had Tara Strong and the 2019 one, and not by MCM, but we had Frank Welker and Peter Cullen come to Liverpool. So that was really fun.
Wonderful.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, you had good people.
Yeah, I miss conventions. We haven't had people like Rob Paulson or Maurice LaMarche or Trez McNeil. Yeah, so.
Well, Tress doesn't like to do a lot of traveling, and
I've heard.
Maurice and Rob are so busy most of the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've been trying to get Rob on here, but he's so busy with like press stuff, Animaniacs, the stuff he does with his son, the gaming streams and stuff like that. So wow.
Rob's a wonderful friend. I have known him for such a long time. So is Maurice, for that matter. And they're both wonderful men.
it seems so easy just to like reach them because you think, because I'm friends with them on Facebook, you think it's just easy just to message them and ask, but it's not that simple. I message, but I don't get a response, so I like to do it in a more professional way. I usually go through the agent, even if I'm friends with the person on Facebook, because I just feel as if thinking in someone's DM saying, "Oh yeah, can we do an interview?" Unless you're like really good friends with them, it's just like, yeah. So I'm hoping I can eventually speak to them at some point because it would be nice, definitely.
Oh, sure, of course.
Yeah, of course. I gotta ask, who is the most famous person you've ever worked with?
Probably Clancy Brown.
Of course,
Clancy
Mr.
is,
Krabs.
and he's such a gentleman. I mean, having done Highlander, having done, the Green Mile. No, not the Green Mile. The other one. Oh, shoot. Oh, it's one of those prison ones that Stephen King wrote. I can't remember. My brain is full of a lot of trivia, but I can't hold that thing.
You have to put it all in your autobiography.
Yeah, and somebody who's watching this will be screaming at the screen and telling me the name of the film that
I'm like that, like most of the time in an interview or a conversation when someone's like, "Oh yeah, what's that thing?" and I'm like, "I know it." I'm trying to shout through the screen so they can hear me. I'm like, "You can't hear you." I'm like,
no. But he's just the most delightful man, and I admire his work, and he's a brilliant actor, and he's just regular down to earth folk. He's not pretentious by any means. There are people in this industry that are, but you know they are what they are. The other prior to working with Clancy, the most famous person I had worked with was June Foray.
"Oh, June, no."
June, I got the privilege of working with her when I was working in Florida. I was there for 11 years. Out of college. I was playing in a brass quintet in the Canada Pavilion at Epcot for 5 years. Then I moved into the music library as a music copyist and occasionally doing arranging work for the different groups on property. And then after that job, I wound up at Universal Studios Florida, which was opening in 1990, and I was the walk around W.C. Fields.
Oh.
And so I was taught how to put on a prosthetic rubber nose and the makeup that goes with it, and all that sort of thing, and wander around and smack little kids on the head with my cane, and just be incredibly rude and or funny. Did that for 3 years, but toward the end of my time at Universal Studios Florida, they were putting in a new Rocky and Bullwinkle stage show, and they got June Foray to come out for the grand opening of it, and they were going to do these satellite interviews with her, and they were looking for someone to do Bullwinkle's voice. They would have a kid in a Bullwinkle costume, but they wanted Bullwinkle to be able to answer if they wanted to ask him a question. And so I auditioned over the phone from Orlando to Tiffany Ward, Jay Ward's daughter.
Wow.
Jay Ward and Bill Scott, who created Rocky and Bullwinkle. I auditioned for Tiffany Ward, and she said, after I finished my audition of doing Bullwinkle, she told me that Bill Scott would be proud.
I'm working on a documentary of Bill right now.
Bill,
that's what I've been working on since the pandemic started.
Have you talked to Keith Scott?
Yes.
In Australia?
I have. I've talked to Corey Burton, I've talked to Frank Welker, everyone.
Another wonderful friend, and
love him.
He is such a wonderful resource for all of that Jay Ward stuff.
And so funny. He made me laugh. I remember we FaceTimed.
Very funny man.
I'll tell him you said hi, definitely. Because I didn't know you knew him. That's cool.
It's a small world after all.
Of course. Oops, Disney reference. Of course.
But I got to sit with June for almost 3 hours.
Wow.
And we did about an hour's worth of satellite interviews, and then we had a lunch break, and then another hour and a half, I think, of doing satellite stuff. And the stories that she would tell were, and I asked her specifically about working on Rocky and Bullwinkle, and she said that it was always fun to be with those guys because they would do their sessions at Capitol Records at the Capitol Recording Building. in Hollywood, and they would do them at 7 o'clock at night.
Ah.
And on the recording days, she would be at her home in Woodland Hills, and Jay Ward and Bill Scott would drive up in Jay's car and pick her up, and they would drive to Musso and Frank's and have martinis until it was time to do the record. Now,
Wow.
June was very wee. She was 5 foot nothing, I believe.
Same height as me. I'm only
And,
5'1", so yeah.
well, you and June have shortness of vertical height in common.
Oh,
But she said, and in those days, martini glasses were much smaller than they are now. They would hold basically a shot of the drink.
Yeah.
But they would drink martinis until they would go to do the recording. And she said, I always knew I could sober up in time and be able to really work because Paul Frees would come in and do 45 minutes to an hour of jokes and stories before we got started recording. So we never started recording before 8 o'clock at night.
Oh, bless her. I wish I could have spoken to her for my documentary, alas.
Oh, she was just an absolute sweetheart. And then Rob Paulson, a few years before June passed away, Rob had her on his podcast, Talking Tunes, and we were
He's just brought that back. Yes, they've just rebooted it.
Yeah, and my wife was the producer of it for a while, and he got June Foray to come on one evening. Well, I had the task of driving out to her home in Woodland Hills and picking June up and driving her to Universal where we were doing the podcast.
Did she remember you?
She did remember me, and we talked about
wow.
that. It was just wonderful. I mean, she had given me her address before we finished our time in Orlando together, and when I moved back home about a little less than a year after that, I had sent her a Christmas card, and she said, "Of course, in the Christmas card, of course I remember you, Bob. I'm glad you're here, and you're with Don Pitts, who is my old agent. I love Don to death. You're in good hands." And she said, "And I'm doing commercials left and right, and they're so great. They pay off like slot machines."
Oh, bless. I mean, Bill Scott had Don Pitts as well, and Chris Latta, and Bob Bergen, and all the great people. And I think Keith was with Don. Or well, Don Pitts was Keith's US agent.
And he had Paul Frees. He had Orson Welles.
Orson Welles, of course.
Yeah,
big Unicron. This isn't even Unicron, but
yeah, but Don had come from Charlie Stern had probably the first real voiceover agency in Los Angeles before it became as big an industry as it is now. And Charlie Stern was the one who had, Dawes Butler and Mel Blanc and Paul Frees and June Foray and Stan Freberg, and I mean the list goes on and on and on. He had all the big voice actors for the longest time, and when he retired, he basically put the business in Don Pitts's hands.
Oh wow!
And Don had been a disc jockey in San Francisco for many years, and that's where his background had been. But he was such a wonderful man. I loved Don. He was kind enough to take me on, as a client, coming from Florida.
Yeah.
I got an appointment to see him before I officially moved out. I came out on a visit and went to his office and went in, and we talked for a few minutes. And then I was just expecting, well, leave your demo tape with me and we'll be in touch. But no, he said, let's give your demo a listen. And I've never had an agent listen to my demo in front of me before. So I hand it to him, and he walks around his desk, and he opens up this big credenza, all this hi-fi equipment, powers it on, puts the cassette in, sits in the chair next to me, and just folds his arms and listens for the 2.5 minutes that my tape ran.
Wow.
And I was sweating because he didn't laugh, he didn't raise an eyebrow, nothing. He just listened. And as he was listening, I kept thinking to myself, okay, I'm not ready for the LA market. I'm going to have to go back and work on some things. And maybe in a year, I'll have improved enough and, he'll want to take me on. And at the end of the 2.5 minutes, Don gets up and shuts the machine off and takes the cassette tape out. And he looks at me and he says, wow, Bob, that was great. A lot of really interesting characters and wide range of vocal stuff you do in there. That was really wonderful. When are you moving out here? And I said, probably within the next 2 months. And he said, well, that's great. When you get back in town, come by and see me and we'll sign you up.
Yay!
And I was 4 stories above Highland Avenue, and I picked my jaw up off of Highland Avenue and put it back in my head. I was walking on cloud 9.
Wow.
It was amazing. I had an LA agent before I even moved here.
Oh, that's so great. And what a lovely story to end this interview on. It's been so lovely talking to you, Bob.
Lovely chatting with you as well. It's nice to meet you officially,
It's
Amber.
lovely to meet you. It's nice to meet you as well, indeed. Where can we find you on social media? Do you have a website? Do you have Facebook? Twitter?
I do not have a social media presence.
Oh, do you not?
No.
Oh, you don't have.
I did at one time, and I had some problems.
I see.
So,
Bob has no social media.
You can write to CESD, and I will do my best to answer back. You can find me on my website, bobjoles.com.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, is there a website we could find you on? bobjoles.com.
Yes.
Or if you like, because you know how Bob has mentioned his wife Pat Brady of CESD fame. So it's like, wow, big voice. Oh, I just pulled my headphones. It's like a voice actor family stream, honestly. Like, so nice, honestly. It's, as I said, Bob, it's been lovely talking to you, and I really hope you can go back to England someday, because it'd be really nice to meet you.
I would love to do that as well, and maybe it would be even with a convention.
I hope so too. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, thank you for watching this little series I do. Even with the whole demonetization thing happening with my channel right now, and that whole Google thing is just mad, I'm still able to make these little videos. So, well, they're not okay. Scrap that. Scrap little videos. Big voice actor interviews. That's a lot more like it. That's definitely more like it. So thank you for watching this episode of In Conversation with ATF with Bob Joles, and we'll see you around. So it's goodbye from me and Bob. Bye.
Bye.
And disappeared for a second. Cut.